range of hazards that we encounter, oil and gas development primarily takes place outdoors, and so you're talking about working out in the weather, talking about working on the natural terrain, and also encountering wildlife. That is appealing to most oil and gas employees. It's the reason that they enjoy working in this industry, but those indeed pose unique hazards. We then would introduce vehicular traffic and construction equipment as we build sites and roads and impoundments. Then rigs and compressors and pumps are brought in, and cranes, lifting and hoisting equipment. And as we drill into formations, we might encounter hydrocarbons, at least we hope that we do, and those can be flammable. We have tubulars that we handle that are either transported to location, transferred to pipe racks, and then they are lifted and hoisted and sometimes stood back in the derricks on the rigs. Tanks are brought to location, and that can create issues with confined space, and so those atmospheres have to be monitored to be sure that they're not hazardous. There are also issues with just logistics, with individuals that want to visit the location because of the scope of the operations. It can attract public attention, and so site security is something that is a growing concern. Absolutely. In fact, as my role as co-chair for PIOGA, the Pennsylvania Independent Oil and Gas Association, I co-chair their environmental committee. And yes, we are very aware of public perception. The industry organizations are, such as Marcellus Shale Coalition or PIOGA, are being proactive in trying to get some positive publicity and press out there. I'm torn between, it's hard to analyze someone else's motivation, but it can be one of two perspectives. Is one that you are very honest about protecting the environment, but you're so zealous that you don't realize the future, not only economic harm, but you can cause environmental harm. If you do not allow industrial development, if you do not have significant wealth in a nation or within an industry, then it becomes almost impossible to comply with environmental regulations. So it's a spiral, it's a self-defeating cycle that you have to have a certain amount of economic realization in order to go back and reclaim locations, or to treat wastewaters, or to dispose of drill cuttings off-site. And those things, you have to find a real balance in order. And so you find less developed countries are the greatest polluters because they simply have not developed to the point where they can afford to do both. I believe that we have very good standards, and the standards are really only as effective as they are implemented and as they are enforced. OSHA's stated goal is that they're going to provide a safe and healthful workplace for workers, and if every operator or contractor followed that simple premise, we wouldn't even need OSHA. There wouldn't be a need for additional regulations. And I might even be so bold as to say that the regulations are overreaching. Again, if we live up to our moral and our ethical and legal obligations, then we're going to find ourselves collaborating with entities such as OSHA, rather than having this adversarial kind of role with both them and the public. ABARTA believes that culture is vitally important to safety. Part of our core principles are integrity and also respect for people, and that's where a good safety program or safety compliance begins. ABARTA pushes responsibility for safety out to the field level employees, to their frontline managers. They're actively involved not only in reviewing programs but also in training. And we do use third parties, we use experts or consultants for training, but we also integrate our own people into that process so that everyone really has a buy-in into that process. Management commitment is also vital, and ABARTA's management is always looking for new components such as behavior-based items that they can add and bring an increased level of awareness to the safety culture, and also to make it fresh. And that's important, that we don't grow apathetic in a safety program. We use a combination of hands-on training. We still use some of the traditional training, but we're trying to get away from just the videotapes. They certainly need to be more up-to-date, more appropriate for the times and also for the hazards that we encounter. And so we do still use some video training, but the majority of it is hands-on so that we can all experience what it is that we're going to be encountering. Drills are also important. Auditing is important, both internally and by using third parties to just try to come back and see if there's something that we missed. This one is a tough one to pin down. I think that the value of a safety program or complying with an OH&S regulations comes in terms of cost savings. That's where your return on investment comes in. And what we're talking about there is we're avoiding fines, we're avoiding penalties. Typically when fines and penalties are imposed, there's going to be some litigation that follows, and so you're talking about legal fees, perhaps even civil penalties if there's some action outside of the the federal or state action that occurs. And that snowballs into increased insurance premiums. It also depresses morale and reduces productivity. It can damage your reputation, and all of those things are harmful to the economic life of a corporation.